Good afternoon. This is Joseph Patton on behalf of weatheracademy.org. We're going to do a quick severe weather briefing for the expected severe weather event today, Sunday, February 28th, 2021. Starting with the upper levels, we can see that on this upper level flow map that there is a large amount of strong winds going on, a strong jet stream going on across the eastern United States, with the blue contours filling in our stronger winds. In addition, there appears to be a large area from Texas to the Mid-Atlantic, highlighted by this red oval, which would be in a fairly favorable area of the jet stream and our right entrance of the jet streak, which would be more supportive of upper level divergence and rising air and severe weather. So in this case, we can see that we've got both a favorable jet placement, and we have strong vertical wind shear, which is going to provide support for storms. Moving down to the mid levels of the troposphere at 500 millibars, this 500 millibar chart shows that there is a strong trough over the western United States. And that trough outlined here is going to be providing broad support for ascent on the forward side of the trough, on the eastern side of the trough, across most of the eastern United States from the Rocky Mountains to the East Coast. So there's upper level support for severe weather in this general area, and there's mid-level support as well. Moving down to the low levels, this 925 millibar chart shows the flow and the moisture just above the surface. So we can see that we've got lots of southerly winds, fairly strong southerly winds, 30, 40 knots according to these wind barbs here, which is going to be lifting up moisture being fed by the Gulf of Mexico well into the Midwest area of the United States. So again, we've got this favored area where we have lots of moisture, strong low-level flow, which is going to have even makes the vertical wind shear even stronger, assuming the winds right at the surface are, zero right once you hit the ground. So we've got lots of moisture, strong vertical wind shear, even down to the low levels. And that southerly flow is helping amplify that moisture being fed from the Gulf of Mexico. We can kind of make out here too that there's a bit of a front where you've got stark changes in the winds extending across this would be from this morning, extending across Arkansas and Texas and Oklahoma, and that's going to be progressing towards the east as with the mean flow. Recall that our mid-level and our upper-level flow was towards the northeast, so that's all going to be pushing towards the east and northeast as we go on later today. Here is the surface chart from WPC, and we can see that we've got our cold front here draped across the Midwest and the southern United States. That's going to be our main lifting mechanism or forcing for ascent for severe thunderstorms today. They're also highlighting this yellow hatched area, which indicates that severe thunderstorms are expected for this area. In addition, they have this red hatched area where they're worried about heavy rain and flash flooding. So if you recall, our wind shear was all from the southwest to the northeast. We're pretty much mostly along this boundary, this lifting mechanism. So this is likely going to become pretty quickly a linear system with maybe some embedded rotating updrafts. But the main thing, that certainly as the day goes on, is that this is probably going to be evolving into a linear system, which would bring with it the strongest hazards would be damaging wind gusts, and then maybe a couple embedded tornadoes as well. Finally, getting down to one last point observation. This is a special sounding launched from Little Rock, Arkansas at 18Z, so about midday today, local noon. And we can see that there's a long, skinny profile of Cape where there's no one particular area where there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere. But generally, this would be fairly supportive of severe weather. We have surface-based CAPE values approaching 2,000 joules per kilogram, and very little SYN, if any at all. In addition, our LCL for the surface, our lifted condensation level, is only 381 meters. So the base of the clouds will be fairly close to the ground, which makes you think that tornadoes might be a possibility. In addition, the precipitable water is 1.34 inches, which is fairly high for this time of year. That means that heavy rain and flooding is probably going to be an issue, especially as this storm system develops into a linear system where we've got storms moving over the same area over and over again. A few more things to point out. Our lapse rates are fairly weak, nothing over about 6.5 degrees C per kilometer. So that means hail's probably not going to be an issue here. The way the hailstones grow is that the strong lapse rates mean you have really strong updrafts, which keep those heavy hailstones aloft long enough for them to conglomerate into larger stones, which can cause damage on the ground. But because you don't have those strong updrafts, in this case with our weaker lapse rates, then hail's probably not going to be an issue. But the other hazards of damaging winds and tornado definitely stick out as a possibility from this sounding. We have a nice, mostly veering wind profile with winds turning clockwise with height and also getting stronger, and you can see that on our hodograph as well. In addition, we have a fairly strong amount of storm relative helicity, or SRH, over 100 meters squared per second squared, especially near the surface. So that essentially means that there's a fair amount of spin already primed in the atmosphere, and that can lead to the propensity for some rotating updrafts and some tornadoes with this storm system. Here is the HRRR model from 18Z today, showing surface-based CAPE or SB CAPE and also vertical wind shear. There's moderately strong instability with these green pixels indicating over 2,000 joules per kilogram across this area here from Arkansas into Tennessee, and even including northern Mississippi and northern Alabama. In addition, our vertical wind shear, like we said, is from the southwest to the northeast, so pretty much right along our boundary. So that's going to be leading to mostly a linear event where we've got a line of storms. So we do have that deep layer of vertical wind shear, which is going to be supportive of severe weather. Here is the simulated reflectivity from that same model, the HRRR model run at 18Z. We can see that we've got a line of fairly strong thunderstorms developing in this area with some embedded rotating updrafts. That's what those black outlines indicate. So there's definitely the possibility from tornadoes in a few localized cases, and then widespread across much of Tennessee, Arkansas, eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and northern Alabama is going to be that chance for damaging wind gusts as well, and even into Kentucky. And eventually this line will fizzle out as it gets towards the Appalachian Mountains. But this whole broad area is at a risk for both damaging wind gusts and tornadoes. Finally, Tornado Watch is already out from the SPC for this afternoon and evening across eastern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, and western Kentucky and Tennessee. All hazards are going to be possible, including tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. The most likely damaging hazards are going to be those tornadoes and damaging wind gusts. So keep a lookout for more watches and warnings from your local NWS forecast office. And thanks a ton for watching.